What you are about to understand is not just about two stealth aircraft having mechanical problems. This is far bigger than that. It isn't just a simple incident or a miscommunication in a military exchange. What happened last night in the Strait of Hormuz, when three U.S. Navy destroyers were directly targeted by Iranian forces, represents an escalation far beyond what the mainstream media is willing to acknowledge. When Iran fired missiles, deployed drones, and launched fast boats against U.S. warships, it wasn't just a shot across the bow. These were deliberate, coordinated attacks intended to send a message, and Washington, in turn, responded with strikes of its own, targeting Iranian military positions. But this conflict isn't about who's right or who's wrong. It's not about the limited tactical exchanges we've seen before. This is about something far deeper: Iran's strategic message to the United States and the world. This is a conflict that threatens to spiral out of control if the reality of the situation is not properly understood. Let's start with the specifics because the details matter, and anyone ignoring them is only fooling themselves. The ships involved in this confrontation were no ordinary vessels. The Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, the USS Truxtun, USS Rafael Peralta, and USS Mason, are the cornerstone of U.S. naval power projection in the region. These ships are equipped with some of the most advanced defense systems the United States military has. They carry standard missiles for intercepting ballistic and cruise missiles, Sea Sparrow systems for medium-range threats, and the Phalanx close-in weapon system, a rapid-fire 20 millimeter Gatling gun capable of launching 4,500 rounds per minute. These ships are designed to withstand precisely the kind of missile, drone, and boat attacks Iran initiated. Yet Iran's goal was never to sink them. The goal was to show the United States that Iran could strike them, and it did. Iran's message was clear: the Strait of Hormuz is not a safe passage for U.S. naval forces. It's a narrow, strategically critical waterway that Iran has prepared to defend at any cost. While Washington may argue that its naval dominance in the region is unmatched, Iran is not playing a conventional game. Instead, it's playing an asymmetric game, one designed to deny the United States free and open access to one of the most important shipping lanes in the world. And the facts of the situation back this up. Iran has the capacity to impose costs on American naval power. This is not about sinking ships. It's about disrupting operations and making U.S. influence in the Gulf more costly and difficult. Iran's layered attack, missiles, drones, and fast boats, wasn't meant to destroy American ships. It was meant to demonstrate Iran's ability to reach U.S. assets in the Gulf. This is Iran saying, "We can touch you." The goal was to impose strategic uncertainty, to disrupt the naval operations of the U.S. Navy in the Gulf. The fact that the destroyers survived the attack wasn't because Iran lacked the ability to do serious damage. It's because Iran was sending a signal to Washington, not trying to sink ships. This isn't a failure of Iranian strategy. This is Iran's strategy at work. Let's not kid ourselves about the U.S. response either. The Pentagon reacted quickly, striking back at Iranian missile and drone launch sites, command and control centers, and fast attack boats. The U.S. targeted key military sites on Iran's southern coast, sending a clear message of its own. These strikes weren't designed to escalate the conflict. They were meant to show Iran that the United States would not simply sit back and accept its provocations. However, the question remains, did these strikes really solve anything? Did they neutralize Iran's strategic position in the region? The answer is no. Despite these strikes, Iran still controls a significant portion of its missile infrastructure. At least 75% of Iran's missile launchers are still operational, and they are already assembling new missiles. The U.S. may have destroyed some of Iran's assets, but it did not destroy the strategic calculus that Iran uses to operate in the Gulf. The message from Iran is clear: you can't eliminate our ability to strike back. Now let's talk about the blockade. Since April, the U.S. has imposed crippling sanctions on Iran's oil exports. This has had a tangible effect on Iran's economy, and it's a strategy designed to squeeze Iran's revenue and force the country to the negotiating table. But here's the reality: Iran can sustain these pressures longer than Washington thinks. The U.S. intelligence community has estimated that Iran can withstand the blockade for at least 90 days and quite possibly longer. So, how is Iran doing this? Through a strategic network that most Western analysts overlook. Khatam al-Anbiya. This dual-purpose organization serves as both the economic engine and the military command center for the IRGC. Khatam al-Anbiya controls billions of dollars in infrastructure projects, energy facilities, and even missile production. This allows Iran to keep operating its military and economic apparatus even under heavy sanctions. The U.S. blockade is having an effect on Iran's oil exports, but it is not going to bankrupt Iran in the short term. Instead, it is creating a sustained pressure point that Iran can manage far longer than Washington has planned for. On the military side, Khatam al-Anbiya's command structure is designed to be redundant and resilient. If the US or Israel takes out key commanders in Iran, the system continues to function. Iran has trained replacements ready to step into leadership roles, which allows the country to maintain its military readiness even when high-ranking officers are taken out. The command structure remains intact, and the country continues to pursue its strategic goals in the Gulf. But here's where things get more concerning. Iran has a significant amount of underground military infrastructure, and recent satellite imagery has revealed increased activity in one of Iran's most secretive facilities. This underground complex has never been inspected by international authorities, and Iran is sealing off tunnel entrances, which is an indication that they may be hiding materials or equipment. The question is, what's inside those tunnels? Is it enriched uranium, missile parts, or something else entirely? The fact that Iran is sealing off these facilities during an ongoing military conflict suggests they have something to hide. Now, let's talk about the broader implications of this conflict, especially when you bring in the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest point, the strait is just 33 kilometers wide, and through it passes about a quarter of the world's oil trade. This isn't just about U.S. interests. This is about the global economy. Iran knows this geography intimately. Iran's strategy in the Strait of Hormuz is not about conventional warfare. It's about denying the U.S. Navy free access to this vital waterway. Iran has spent decades preparing for this moment, and it is ready to exploit every advantage it has in this geography. Iran's asymmetric strategy involves more than just missiles and drones. Iran has an extensive missile defense network, UAVs, fast attack boats, and mines at its disposal. These assets are not meant to defeat the U.S. military in a conventional fight. They are designed to impose strategic costs. By doing so, Iran can make American operations in the Gulf far more expensive and difficult. Iran's message to the world is clear. The Strait of Hormuz is a choke point, and Iran has the power to close it at any time. But here's the catch. Iran doesn't have to permanently close the strait to send a message. A few damaged tankers, a few mining incidents, or a few drone strikes could disrupt the global energy market and raise the cost of doing business in the Gulf. That's the price Tehran is willing to impose. Now, here's where Washington needs to take a step back and think critically. The U.S. military might have technological superiority, but technology does not equal control. The U.S. Navy can send destroyers into the Gulf, but those ships are still vulnerable to Iran's asymmetric tactics. Iran can target these ships with its missile forces, drone swarms, and fast attack boats. The U.S. can defend against some of these threats, but not all of them. And that's the fundamental problem Washington has yet to fully grasp. Let's also talk about the larger geopolitical consequences. The U.S. cannot go it alone in this conflict. It needs regional cooperation, especially from Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. But here's the problem. These states don't want to openly partner with Washington when the costs are so high. The strikes on Abu Dhabi, the activation of air defense systems over Dubai, and the explosions near energy infrastructure show that Iran is sending a clear message. If you side with Washington, you'll become a target too. Washington's strategic miscalculation is simple. You can't build a coalition against Iran while simultaneously allowing Iran to credibly threaten every member of that coalition. Without the cooperation of Gulf states, U.S. power projection becomes more difficult and more exposed. Let's turn to the nuclear issue. Despite weeks of U.S. and Israeli strikes, Iran's nuclear infrastructure remains intact. We've seen some progress in terms of eliminating key nuclear sites, but the problem remains that Iran has not abandoned its nuclear ambitions. The United States needs to confront this fact. Washington wants to limit Iran's nuclear program, but it also knows that Iran is a regional power that cannot be fully isolated. Washington cannot ignore Iran's nuclear progress. Iran cannot surrender its nuclear program without suffering a major political loss at home. Israel, too, cannot accept a nuclear Iran. And this brings us to the key question: how far will Washington and Israel go to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons? The next steps are critical. America, Iran, Israel, and the Gulf states are all watching each other. And right now, all sides are waiting for a misstep, waiting for one mistake, one misinterpretation, one technical error, or one political overreaction to trigger a war they cannot control. The last few weeks have demonstrated one thing: the situation in the Gulf is dangerously close to full scale conflict. The pressure is mounting on all sides, and every action is now a potential trigger for escalation. Washington, Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Riyadh are all on edge, trying to figure out which side will blink first. But if history teaches us anything, it's that miscalculations and intelligence failures lead to conflict when all sides believe they can control the situation, but none actually can. If you think that was the dangerous part, what comes next could very well be the beginning of something much larger. The stakes are high and the world is watching. The only question left is how long before the situation explodes beyond anyone's control.